I got to say, 2018, it was the year of supposed, and I said this on, I think it was Paced Out Radio. 2018, it looked like it was going to be great, explosive. Disclosure's going to happen. The New York Times article came out. Trump came out and talked about the Space Force. You had To the Dreams Academy with the Tom DeLonge, and it looked like it might happen. And we waited, and we waited, and we waited. And it was kind of like a rocket went up, and it fizzled out. What happened there, Michael?
That was a good question because obviously it was just a little over a year ago now that New York Times article came out on the front page of the New York Times, December 16th, 2017, above the fold, talking with the Department of Defense and the Pentagon officials confirming for the first time in history that UFOs exist. I mean, that was a major event, in anybody's book if you're into the paranormal, UFOs, and all that kind of stuff. And then, of course, there were kind of like not a lot of follow-up to that. But towards the end of the year, I think probably we've all felt this, that there was just this big momentum coming with the mainstream media, coming out with Harvard astronomers talking about the Oumuamua asteroid maybe being a advanced probe from an alien civilization. This is Harvard talking about this in the mainstream news. The giggle factor is gone now as far as is concerned. When people talk about these things, it's more of a serious attitude. So, I think, and we talked about it earlier today with the sightings that Megan had actually just tonight of a UFO. They seem to be more blatant, the actual sightings themselves. So who knows whether maybe the government was a little reticent to do this. Maybe the off-worlders are saying, hey, we're going to do it if you don't.
Well, the first, and I've said this many times, the first disclosure actually happened in 52 with the UFO flap over the White House. It wasn't Roswell. It wasn't Maury Island. And I'm assuming we have a lot of local listeners as well, being based out of Seattle. But if you haven't heard of the Maury Island incident, that was actually bigger than Roswell, in my opinion, because it happened right here in Washington.
And it was before Roswell, 2 weeks.
It was
Roswell.
That's what they call the Washington State Roswell.
Yep.
And that just like a month later, Roswell happened. In between there, you had Kenneth Arnold with the UFO, the flying saucer sightings, and that was what coined the term flying saucer. So Washington State's been a key pivotal point in the UFO field since the beginning. And I don't know. I feel let down because 2018 was supposed to be the year of disclosure. And I didn't see, it looked promising. And I think Blue Book, this TV show that's coming out, is kind of don't get mad, but I think it's a weak attempt at trying to spark it up again. We'll see what happens. But, UFO sightings, I don't know if they're on the rise or if it's just part of it. I think too is the media was given the green light to talk about them openly, without smirking and laughing, and like Dave Scott said, without the X-Files music playing in the background, and they've given kind of the green light that it's okay to talk about, and maybe that is the catalyst that was needed for disclosure to happen this year. I'm not going to hold my breath for it. I'm just going to keep doing what FMP does best and work with clients. But we are going to go out in the mountains more because I think that's where a lot of the answers are. Are UFOs and Bigfoot tied? I believe they are indirectly. You hear the stories about Bigfoot being seen walking out of landed craft and taking soil and water samples. and getting back on those landed craft and taking off. Is that some kind of a mind, what's the word they use for it? A memory screen? It could be. But I've also heard stories where Bigfoot was seen running terrified from UFO sightings. So you hear two sides of that coin. Now, I have a theory. We have humans being abducted by aliens. Why aren't they abducting Bigfoot as well? That's a very strong possibility, and that's one thing I want to look at. But first, we have to speak to a Bigfoot, and we're going to try that with a spirit box.
And we've definitely got reports of cattle, of course, being abducted and mutilated, and elk as well. There's a very famous Washington State case of some forest service workers who were planting trees in a clear cut, seeing a UFO abduct a wild elk from a herd.
So with elk, too, there is a famous case in Canada where there's a guy hunting. I can't remember the name. It's actually in my presentation I do with UFOs for the team, where the guy took a shot at an elk, and his jaw dropped, but he actually watched his bullet move in slow motion, and then he watched the elk being lifted by a UFO that was hovering over them. Now, if you want to look at it scientifically, bovine blood, cow blood, is the closest of any species to human blood. So, just like pig skin is the closest animal skin to human skin. So, if you want to look at, the cattle mutilation phenomena is another one that intrigues me, and I love Linda Moulton Howe's discussions about cattle. She really sparked the cattle mutilation discussion back in, I believe it was the 80s or 90s with the HBO documentary she was doing. And, my question, I guess, if they were coming to abduct cattle, and I believe the first documented animal was actually a horse, and I can't remember the name of It's Hippie.
Snippy.
Colorado. Yeah. But they pick them up and they drop them from the sky. That's been, proven. And why would they do that? It just makes you question.
Exactly. Why would they not care that we see something strange going on? Normally, you could just dispose of maybe the body, the carcass, in a certain way that they wouldn't bring attention to themselves, but they don't seem to be worried about that.
No, they don't. And, just like the questions I get oftentimes, too, are, why would they have lights on? Well, one answer is so they don't hit each other. Another answer is so that we will see them.
Yes.
Everybody. I think the most memorable UFO sighting I remember out of the 5 that I've seen was the one in Iraq going over Syria. And one key point with that one was the MOS of the soldiers that were with me. One was an aircraft crewman. The other one was an aircraft mechanic. And both of them that's not one of our terrestrial craft for sure. But it was triangular shaped. It had green, blue, and red lights on it, and they weren't in the normal terrestrial aircraft pattern. Now, they weren't drones because drones are generally louder. Drones also, it wasn't, going by aircraft experts, because they would be experts in my mind. They know craft. They have to go through craft identification classes in schools with their job. But coming from them and coming from the fact that this craft showed up 3 nights in a row for about 15 minutes at a time, made no sound, no humming noise, no nothing. It moved very slow. It stopped. It maneuvered in different directions, and it wasn't normal. But that's the one that sticks out in my mind, I think, the most. What about you, Michael? what would be your most memorable sighting you've seen?
Oh gosh, I have a sighting in 2012 that I still can't explain. I have a vivid recollection coming home very quickly here. I'll just go over it. Coming home and taking a picture of the full moon hovering over my house. When I looked at the photo earlier or later on and kind of tweaked it with some enhancements, it turned out that there was a triangular-shaped UFO hovering below the moon over the top of my house in this photograph. Now, the weird thing was, I thought I took the photograph at about 8:30 p.m. in the evening on a winter night in January, and actually the photo was taken, the timestamp on the photo says it was taken at 3:37 a.m. the morning before, 17 hours earlier. So I've got a major weird missing time situation going on with my sighting.
Wow.
Yeah. And that's common. Yeah, we'll be talking about abductions in depth many times over this year. So for our new listeners that are just finding S-4, by all means, don't worry. You're going to hear all about aliens, abductions. We cover it all. So yeah, I'm again glad we found this network. I'm glad Gary pulled us into this network because the topics we hit will definitely hit home. Again, we also discuss active shooting response. We discuss disaster response. Like I said, next week we'll be talking about winter preparation and how to keep your family safe and how to stay comfortable during a power outage, things of that nature. Because when we talk emergency response, we're talking emergency response not just with paranormal, but with mundane emergencies as well. So my background is 19 and a half years Army, like I said, 4 combat tours. I've got OSHA background, I've got FEMA background, I've got a degree in Homeland Security. Megan, go ahead and give us a little background of you real quick.
Oh, let's see. I'm typing. I served 3 years in the Marines. I worked on electronic countermeasures, radar, classified material, clerk stuff. So I was a handler. I got out because of injury. So, Marines, if we're non-deployable, we're out. So I enjoyed my service. I miss it. I miss it very much. But yeah, I guess I just have better things to do in life. There's a bigger plan. So I'm happy with that.
Outstanding. And yeah, you've got a lot of intelligence background as well. So
well, that's the classified portion.
Exactly. So most of the listeners, I don't know you, Michael. Tell us a little background about you real quick.
Well, I've been an attorney for 30 years. They call me the paranormal lawyer nowadays. I've been I founded the UFO I-Team, which is a highly educated group of UFO and paranormal field investigators. And you can find us on Facebook at UFO I-Team or UFOIteam.com as well. And by the way, I wanted to make a real quick note that the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network, Gary Anderson, is working on having a really great call-in line service for our listeners out there worldwide. So we'll be getting some phone calls here in this new year that we can talk with and see some of our S-4ians, in conversation as well. So that'll be a lot of fun.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And Cole, give us a real quick background of you.
So I am Canadian, originally from Drumheller, Alberta. My family has a lot of history within the area there and within the area of Saskatchewan through farming and music. So I officially became a business owner a year ago with Statement of Sound DJ service, and we moved through, morphed into Statement of Sound DJ production, and I serve FMP through developing ads and intros for S4 and helping them with any technical items that they need.
Outstanding. And what I like too is you're also First Nations, which means you